Reinhard Heydrich, born on March 7, 1904, is remembered as one of the most feared and efficient SS officers in Nazi Germany. His connection with Adolf Hitler was complicated, defined by ambition, loyalty, and above all, terror. As he advanced within the Nazi system, Heydrich became known for his skill in carrying out harsh policies and for his closeness to the highest levels of power, which later made him appear as a possible successor to Hitler. He entered the SS in 1931 under Heinrich Himmler, who quickly noticed his abilities in organization and repression. 3 years later, Heydrich became head of the Gestapo, where he directed the removal of political enemies and strengthened SS authority. His involvement in building the SS intelligence service made him central to the Third Reich security system. During World War II, Heydrich became director of the Reich Main Security Office and played a major role in executing the final solution to the Jewish question, a policy that led to the genocide of millions. Hitler and Heydrich shared a relationship built on mutual reliance and admiration. Hitler depended on figures like Heydrich to enforce his vision of the Third Reich, while Heydrich gained power through his closeness to Hitler. Known for being cold and calculating, Heydrich maintained an almost symbiotic relationship with him. Many believed Hitler saw Heydrich as an extension of himself, someone capable of performing the most brutal tasks without hesitation or guilt. Because of his ability to manage complex bureaucracy and enforce extreme policies, many viewed him as a potential successor. Hitler, who valued both loyalty and effectiveness, admired Heydrich's image as a firm and determined leader. Heydrich was often described as highly intelligent and exceptionally skilled in organization and strategy, helping him stand apart from his peers. Some believed that if he had lived longer, Heydrich might have challenged Hitler's authority. Hermann Göring and Heinrich Himmler, however, distrusted him due to power struggles and personal ambition. This ambition caused concern among these senior Nazi leaders, who saw Heydrich as a possible competitor. Göring, serving as Minister of Aviation and founder of the Gestapo, had control over the secret police. Although he initially backed Heydrich, his rising influence and growing closeness to Himmler began to alarm him. Göring feared Heydrich could eventually weaken his authority, especially in a leadership environment full of internal rivalries. Himmler, despite being a close associate of Heydrich, also experienced tension. While he relied on Heydrich to expand the SS, Heydrich's independence and ambition created suspicion. Himmler understood that Heydrich could threaten his position as SS chief, leading him to maintain a relationship based on both respect and caution. In September 1941, Hitler appointed Heydrich as acting Reich protector of Bohemia and Moravia, giving him wide authority to crush resistance in Czech territories. His rule relied heavily on fear and violence, earning him the nickname Butcher of Prague. By mid-1942, Heydrich became the target of an assassination attempt in Prague and was severely injured. Although Hitler criticized Heydrich's habit of traveling in open vehicles, Heydrich died a few days later, leaving a major gap in the Third Reich's leadership. At his funeral, the Führer praised him as one of the greatest nationalists, one of the strongest defenders of the German Reich idea, and one of its most relentless enemies of enemies. On the same day, Hitler awarded him the German Order, the regime's highest honor. The story began in January 1933 when Adolf Hitler came to power and the Nazis began forming a police state. In April that year, Heinrich Himmler became head of Bavaria's political police, and Reinhard Heydrich, driven by strong ambition, was placed in charge of the Prussian Gestapo. By 1934, the Gestapo focused on crushing political dissent, targeting communists, socialists, and other groups seen as threats. On June 17, 1936, Himmler became chief of the German police. Under him, police forces were divided into two main branches, the Ordnungspolizei, order police, and the Sicherheitspolizei, security police. The security police, considered the most important branch, included both the Gestapo and the criminal Polizei. Heydrich was placed in charge of the newly formed Sicherheitspolizei. When World War II started in September 1939, Heydrich's power grew even more. He became head of the Reich Main Security Office, Reich Sicherheitshauptamt or RS, which included the Sicherheitspolizei, the Sicherheits-SD, and other agencies. This role placed him at the center of Nazi security, allowing him to direct operations against both domestic and foreign enemies. Heydrich designed the RSHA to function as an aggressive administrative body able to adjust quickly and carry out policies with extreme efficiency. Centralizing power under the RSHA created a unified command that improved intelligence collection, surveillance, and repression throughout Nazi-occupied Europe. Heydrich supervised a massive network of informants and agents. The SD handled intelligence gathering, while the Gestapo enforced laws, and the criminal Polizei under him became more involved in political repression. The system relied heavily on surveillance. The SD kept detailed records on individuals, tracking public opinion and dissent. This intelligence system allowed Nazis to act against threats before they fully developed. House raids, interrogations, and arrests became common, often based only on suspicion or anonymous tips. Terror was used as the main tool of control. The Gestapo and the Sicherheitspolizei operated with almost complete freedom, arresting people without trial under protective custody laws. This allowed arrests of political dissident, Jews, and other targeted groups. Gestapo interrogation methods were extremely harsh and often included torture. Prisoners experienced physical violence and psychological fear, often worrying about their families. To accomplish his objectives, Heydrich built a trusted inner circle to help enforce terror policies. These figures helped unite the Gestapo and criminal police and supported the Holocaust. One was Führer Best, Heydrich's deputy and later head of the RSHA Political Police Division. His legal knowledge helped justify the Gestapo's illegal actions. Best created policies for handling Jews and political dissident and helped manage occupied territories. Another was Walter Schellenberg, who helped organize and manage the Gestapo through Ares Section 2. His administrative talent improved intelligence and surveillance systems. Schellenberg was extremely loyal to Heydrich. France helped lead the Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing units responsible for mass shootings in occupied regions. Six was seen as a dedicated ideologue, fully willing to follow Heydrich's orders and carry out mass killings of Jews and other undesirables. Lena Matilda von Osten, born June 14, 1911, married Reinhard Heydrich in December 1931. Their marriage created a family that reflected Nazi Aryan ideals. Lena, daughter of a minor German noble, joined the Nazi Party in 1929, influenced by her brother Hans, who was part of the Sturmabteilung. The Heydrich family started their life in Hamburg, where Lena encouraged Reinhard, after his Navy dismissal due to scandal, to join the SS. This choice became crucial as Reinhard quickly advanced and eventually led the SS intelligence service, the Sicherheitsdienst SD. As his career advanced, Lena focused on managing the home and raising their children. His demanding work often kept him away, causing stress in the marriage. Despite this, they had 4 children who became part of the family's wartime and post-war story. Their first son, Klaus, was born in 1933, followed by Haida in 1934. Despite strict discipline and expectations, Klaus died young in a traffic accident at age 10. His death deeply impacted Lena, who grieved heavily and sought punishment for the driver. Heydrich later became the focus of the family's hopes. He grew up in a tense environment where mistakes were punished. Silke, born in 1939, was their first daughter and was greatly favored by Reinhard. The youngest child was born only weeks before Reinhard's death in 1942. The children were raised in a household strongly influenced by Nazi beliefs, with Lena teaching them ideas of Aryan superiority and loyalty to the regime. The honorable and dignified life they displayed publicly was actually an illusion. Within their private life, a deeply troubling reality existed. Lena was frequently described as being even more ideologically extreme than her husband, teaching her children not only Nazi ideology but also a strong hatred toward any sign of weakness or opposition. Her responsibilities as a mother were closely tied to her husband's political goals. She supervised their estate in Jungfernbrechen, where the family remained until the end of World War II. Reports suggest she maintained a very strict household and supervised forced labor, which reflected the regime's exploitation of conquered populations. Some witnesses stated that she physically abused these laborers. The family's lifestyle reflected the privileges that came with Reinhardt's status. They lived comfortably and participated in leisure activities such as horseback riding and croquet, reflecting the bourgeois ideals of the period. Lena worked actively to present the image of a perfect Aryan family, which was clear in her public appearances and in the way she presented her children. She often highlighted their Aryan ancestry and their roles in the Nazi state. However, Lena later experienced widowhood during a time of rapid political change. She stayed in Czechoslovakia for a period, managing the estate and raising her children while under the close observation of Heinrich Himmler, who took on a protective role toward her. After the war, when the Heydrich family escaped the approaching Soviet forces, they eventually returned to Femmen, where Lena attempted to rebuild their lives. In later years, she tried to protect her husband's reputation, publishing a memoir in 1976 titled Living with a War Criminal. In the book, she described Reinhard as a devoted family man and a victim of circumstances rather than someone responsible for atrocities, attempting to distance him from the horrors of the Holocaust. Her version of events attempted to defend the idea of the Aryan family despite overwhelming evidence of her husband's role in Nazi crimes. As Prague's security chief, Heydrich played a major role in establishing and directing the Einsatzgruppen during World War II. These mobile killing units, mainly composed of SS members and police personnel, were responsible for the systematic killing of civilians labeled as enemies of Nazi Germany in occupied Soviet territories. The Einsatzgruppen developed from a special command unit Heydrich created after the 1938 Anschluss to secure Austrian government buildings and documents. Originally part of the Sicherheitspolizei, 2 units were stationed in the Sudetenland in October 1938. Although military action was avoided due to the Munich Agreement, the groups were assigned to seize documents, secure buildings, interrogate officials, and arrest up to 10 Czech communists and German citizens. Beginning in September 1939, the RSHA took full control of the Einsatzgruppen as part of the campaign to eliminate so-called undesirable groups. Between September and December of that year, they took part in the Action T4 euthanasia program. Preparing for Hitler's invasion of Poland on September 1st, Heydrich arranged 4 Eins units to accompany the Wehrmacht. These units gathered intelligence and carried out Operation Tannenberg, which resulted in the deaths of thousands of Poles, including intellectuals, priests, teachers, and members of the nobility. Victims were often killed under the false claim that they were trying to escape. Nearly a year and a half later, Heydrich verbally ordered the killing of Soviet Jews at the Scipio NCO school in Prague, where reorganized Einstein commanders were trained for Operation Barbarossa. In spring 1941, Heydrich and Wehrmacht Quartermaster General Edward Vanner completed agreements allowing cooperation between the Eingruppen and the German military. On April 28 that year, Field Marshal Walter von Rickich ordered that when Operation Barbarossa began, all German army commanders must locate and register all Jews in occupied Soviet territories and fully cooperate with the Einsatzgruppen. Following Germany's goal of conducting an ideological war of annihilation in the Soviet Union, Heydrich, as head of the Reich Sicherheitsdienst, ordered Einsatzgruppen commanders to systematically kill all civilians considered enemies of the Reich. Targets included Jewish civilians, Romani people, Soviet Communist Party officials, and anyone considered politically or racially dangerous. As German forces advanced into Soviet territory, the Einsatzgruppen followed and carried out mass killings. At first, with assistance from locally recruited police auxiliaries and other SS and German police units, they mainly targeted Jewish men. By late July 1941, after additional SS and police reinforcements arrived in occupied Soviet territory, these units began destroying entire Jewish communities, killing men, women, and children without distinction. 4 Einsatzen units, each roughly the size of a battalion, along with multiple police battalions, were deployed throughout the Soviet Union. Einsatzgruppe A advanced from East Prussia through Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia toward Leningrad, massacring Jews in Kovno, Riga, and Nias. Einsatzgruppe B departed from Warsaw in occupied Poland and moved into Belarus and Smolensk. Einsatzgruppe C advanced from Kyiv through western Ukraine toward Kiev. Einsatzgruppe D moved from Romania through Odessa into the Caucasus. In total, the Einsatzgruppe and other police forces killed approximately 1 million Jews in the Soviet Union during 1941 and 1942. Heydrich was central to the creation, organization, and direction of these killing units, contributing significantly to the Holocaust. Under his leadership, the Einsatzgruppen became highly efficient killing forces and represented one of the most extreme expressions of Nazi ideology. Nothing was left to chance. Every operational detail was carefully organized and carried out with deadly precision. Reports sent to Berlin recorded death counts, massacre locations, and the justification for each killing. The men he commanded were not ordinary soldiers. They were carefully selected to serve as tools of his authority, reflecting his hatred and racial ideology. These hardened executioners required no additional motivation. Their deep belief in Nazi ideology and complete loyalty to Heydrich was enough. The activities of the Einsatzgruppe destroyed Jewish communities across the Soviet Union. One village after another was wiped out, leaving survivors living in constant fear. Methods varied, but the result was always the same: systematic mass killing. Mass shootings were the most common method, But other methods were also used, including gas vans where victims were suffocated while being transported to burial sites. Heydrich personally supervised operations to ensure complete adherence to his objective of eliminating all resistance to Nazi domination. On the night of November 9, 1938, a humiliating and violent spectacle took place under the moonlight, organized by top Nazi officials. Reinhard Heydrich, leader of the security police, acted like a dark puppeteer, ensuring everything followed the plan. The event was triggered by the killing of Ernst vom Rath, a German embassy official in Paris, by a young Polish Jew named Herschel Grinspan. Distressed by the recent deportation of his family and thousands of Polish Jews from Germany, Grinspan took extreme action and shot Vom. In response, Joseph Goebbels, head of Nazi propaganda, quickly intensified hatred through aggressive rhetoric. Using inflammatory language, he prepared the ground for upcoming violence. The SA and Hitler Youth, always ready to carry out destruction, began their attacks. Wearing civilian clothing to make it appear spontaneous, they targeted synagogues, Jewish shops, and homes. At 1:20 a.m. on November 10, Heydrich sent a telegram providing detailed instructions. It stated that only actions that did not threaten German life or property were allowed. For example, synagogues could only be burned if nearby buildings were not at risk. Jewish stores and homes could be destroyed but not looted. Police were instructed to enforce these rules and arrest looters on main streets. Extra care was required to protect non-Jewish businesses. Foreign citizens, even if Jewish, were not to be harmed. As quickly as possible, as many Jews as detention centers could hold, especially wealthy individuals, were to be arrested. At that time, only healthy Jewish men of suitable age were to be detained. After arrests, concentration camps had to be contacted immediately for prisoner transfer. This telegram initiated Kristallnacht, or the Night of Broken Glass, a massive wave of anti-Jewish violence that marked a turning point in Nazi persecution. Heydrich once again acted as the hidden planner behind the terror. Everything had to be carried out with extreme precision, like the mechanism of a Swiss watch, representing German efficiency used for hatred. Additionally, before synagogues were destroyed, it was considered essential to collect Jewish community records. Even during violent chaos, bureaucratic procedures continued. The streets were strewn with broken glass, which is how the night earned its name. Nearly 10,000 temples were set on fire, and Jewish businesses were destroyed with a ruthless efficiency comparable to that of a Viking raid. Yet the violence extended far beyond property damage. Jews were assaulted, degraded, and murdered. Roughly 30,000 individuals were arrested and transported to concentration camps. The Nazi government attempted to present Kristallnacht as a spontaneous reaction by ordinary Germans to the death of vom Rath, as if millions had simply woken up deciding it was a suitable day for a pogrom. In truth, the careful organization and coordination among state authorities revealed otherwise. Only a regime equipped with a powerful and efficient repressive system could carry out such a widespread and deadly action. To make matters worse, the government imposed a 1 million mark fine on the Jewish community to cover the destruction, forcing the victims to pay for the damage inflicted upon them. This event became a major shift in Nazi policy. Before Kristallnacht, anti-Semitic actions mainly centered on economic and social exclusion. Kristallnacht marked a transition into open violence and direct persecution. The Jewish community was shattered, and many attempted to escape Germany, but most countries refused to accept them. Refugee camps became overcrowded and unable to house everyone seeking safety. The global reaction varied, with some expressing horror, others showing indifference, and a few quietly approving. The pogrom not only harmed its immediate victims but also influenced how the world viewed the Nazi regime. While some governments criticized the violence, the lack of a strong and united response from Western powers signaled to the Nazis that they could continue their policies. At the same time, the passivity of much of the German population was striking, as many accepted the attacks as a valid expression of public feeling. Founded in 1923, the International Criminal Police Commission, ICPC, which later became Interpol, was originally created to promote global cooperation in combating cross-border crime. However, with the rise of Nazi Germany, its purpose was distorted and brought under the control of the Third Reich. After the Anschluss in 1938, when Austria was annexed, the ICPC fell directly under Nazi authority. Its headquarters were relocated to Berlin, and SS officers replaced its leadership. Reinhard Heydrich became president on August 24, 1940, replacing Nazi Party member Otto Steinhausel. During Heydrich's leadership, the ICPC was fully absorbed into the Nazi security structure and placed under the Reich Main Security Office, RSHA, which Heydrich led. This created a centralized system where the ICPC cooperated closely with the Gestapo and other repressive bodies. The organization shifted from fighting crime to identifying and capturing political enemies, Jews, and other persecuted groups, effectively turning into an instrument of state terror. Under Nazi control, the ICPC used its international connections to exchange intelligence about dissidents and those labeled undesirable among allied or cooperating states. It helped coordinate arrests and deportations, especially during mass roundups of Jews across Europe, using its records to locate targets. It also assisted in extraditing political opponents from neutral countries back to Germany, where they faced trial, deportation, or execution. As more nations recognized that the organization had become a Nazi tool, many withdrew membership. By the end of World War II, it had stopped functioning as an international crime-fighting organization and instead acted as an extension of the SS. Successors such as Arthur Northeast by East and Ernst Kaltenbrunner continued strengthening this transformation and played major roles in implementing policies that enabled the Holocaust and the persecution of millions. After the war, the organization was rebuilt as Interpol, focusing once again on international law enforcement cooperation, though its Nazi-era legacy affected its reputation for years. The roots of the Nazi occupation of Czechoslovakia can be traced to the Munich Agreement of September 1938. Britain, France, Germany, and Italy agreed to hand over the Sudetenland, a border region with a large ethnic German population, to Nazi Germany. This concession, intended to prevent war, instead encouraged Hitler and weakened Czechoslovakia's defenses. The Sudetenland was formally annexed on October 1, 1938, destroying Czech defensive fortifications and leaving the country exposed. On March 15, 1939, Hitler broke the Munich Agreement by invading the remaining areas of Czechoslovakia, particularly Bohemia and Moravia. The invasion happened quickly and met little resistance because earlier concessions had already destabilized the government. The territory was highly valuable to the German war effort and was placed under Nazi officials who imposed repression and Germanization policies. Following the invasion, Hitler created the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, putting it under direct German rule. Although it maintained the illusion of local government, it was effectively a puppet state. Emil Hacha, the final president of Czechoslovakia, was forced to surrender independence during a meeting with Hitler in Berlin and became only a symbolic leader. Real authority belonged to the Reich Protector, Hitler's direct representative. The position was first held by Konstantin von Neurath, but in September 1941 Reinhard Heydrich replaced him. Under Heydrich, the Protectorate experienced intense repression, especially targeting Jews and political opponents. From the beginning, he introduced severe measures to eliminate cultural activities that might challenge Nazi beliefs. Czech cultural and sports groups were dissolved, and educational and artistic institutions were restricted to destroy Czech national identity and replace it with German culture aligned with Nazi ideology. Cultural suppression included strict censorship of newspapers and literature. Any material supporting Czech nationalism or considered politically dangerous was banned. Libraries were purged, and many books were destroyed. Propaganda dominated media, praising Germany while portraying Czechs and other groups negatively. Heydrich's rule relied heavily on political repression, focusing on communists, nationalists, and anyone resisting the regime. The Gestapo carried out extensive surveillance, arrests, and executions. Jews faced especially harsh treatment, losing rights and property. Laws excluded them from economic and social participation, pushing many into poverty. In October and November 1941, special courts carried out summary trials that led to 342 executions, while thousands more were arrested and handed to the Gestapo. In November 1941, Heydrich ordered the establishment of the Theresienstadt ghetto, which served as a transit location for Jews being sent to extermination camps. It was also used as propaganda to mislead the world about Nazi policies. While thousands were sent to their deaths, the Nazis portrayed Theresienstadt as a model community. Around 1930, approximately 118,000 Jews lived in the region, but most were eventually deported to death camps. Heydrich also attempted to control everyday Czech life, offering workers economic incentives such as equal wages to Germans to encourage cooperation. However, these policies mainly supported Germany's war economy. Repression affected every part of society. Heydrich tightly controlled administration and used fear and manipulation to maintain obedience, creating an illusion of normal life while operating a vast system of surveillance and punishment. Despite the harsh environment, resistance movements formed throughout Czechoslovakia. Communist and nationalist groups carried out sabotage and underground activities. Heydrich was central in implementing the Nacht und Nebel, night and fog policy, designed to eliminate resistance in occupied territories. In December 1941, Hitler gave Heydrich nearly unlimited authority to crush opposition. This intensified after German troops left France in 1941 to attack the Soviet Union, which increased resistance activities across Europe. Sabotage disrupted German communication systems, forcing German intelligence to increase arrests. Military courts became overwhelmed, and Hitler, believing them too slow and lenient, pushed for harsher measures under Heydrich. Repression alone could not stop Czech resistance. From London, the Czechoslovak government in exile planned the assassination of Heydrich, known as Operation Anthropoid. On May 27, 1942, in Prague, British-trained paratroopers Jan Kubis and Josef Gabčík waited for Heydrich's vehicle. Confident in his safety, Heydrich often traveled without security. That day, his Mercedes 320 Cabriolet appeared, driven by Johannes Klein. Gabčík tried to fire his Sten submachine gun, but it malfunctioned. Heydrich stood and reached for his pistol, and Kubis threw a modified anti-tank grenade that exploded near the rear wheel. The car lifted and crashed down in smoke. Heydrich was injured but managed to exit the vehicle. The attackers escaped, believing the mission had failed. Heydrich was taken to a hospital and refused treatment from Czech doctors, requesting German specialists. At first, his injuries seemed survivable, but infection caused by contaminated shrapnel, possibly containing horsehair from the upholstery, spread through his body. On June 4, 1942, Heydrich died in Prague. The Nazi retaliation was severe. More than 70 people were executed immediately. The villages of Lidice and Lizaki were destroyed, with all men executed and women and children sent to concentration camps. Within weeks, more than 1,300 people were killed. The Nazis offered a reward of 10 million crowns for information about the attackers and threatened to execute entire families of anyone who helped them. Eventually, resistance member Karel Kurda betrayed his fellow fighters. On June 18, 1942, the SS surrounded a church in Prague where the remaining commandos were hiding. After 8 hours of fighting and running out of ammunition, the fighters committed suicide rather than surrender. Kurda received the reward but was later arrested, tried for treason, and executed in 1947. Heydrich's funeral in Berlin was conducted with full state honors. Adolf Hitler delivered the final speech, and Heydrich's coffin was carried through the city in a formal and solemn procession.